Hey, I'm Kevin, and this is my first video on my channel, Entertaining Entropy on YouTube. Follow me, smash that like button, subscribe if you like this content. Today I'm talking about building an NFT portfolio, talking about what an NFT is a little bit, but really focused around an app called VeVe. With this, NFTs are something that are brand new, so hoping to really get into a space that's trending and really make a lot of money in the long run for an investment that we're getting into really early. So starting off with, what is an NFT? NFT represents a non-fungible token. That's a way for me to copyright a digital asset. What that means is I can own art in a digital form. I can own land. I can own buildings. People have started to incorporate into video games, so I can own parts of video games. I can own collectibles from different vendors and different things in the space of the digital world. And as it starts to develop, people will start to have more and more things that they own digitally, and as they transmute that into the metaverse, which is an environment where these types of digital assets are all shared into one network space, we're able to then start to build on this idea of the value of these types of digital assets. So with VR, augmented reality, and these types of things really starting to hit the mainstream, I think these are the types of investments and things that we want to really focus on. So that's where I've spent my time. And I'll explain what it is here. NFTs really have just been around for a few years, since 2012 when they were first invented as colored coins. Colored coins on a blockchain represented a token that was tied to an asset. And now this idea of NFTs is still pretty new, but people have started to talk about it more. There's been a lot of partnerships that have happened with the different types of assets and NFTs on the different types of blockchains that I could go into in other videos. But today I'm still focusing on a single app, VeVe, where you are actually able to own NFTs, own virtual assets, and start to trade and collect them all within the same app. So VeVe is actually an app that is partnered with all the right people, I think, and it's the one that I find to be the forefront of the NFT trading world in the mainstream of trading NFTs. For what I've seen, it's available on both Android and Apple markets, and for right now it's free. I don't know if they'll start charging in the future, but you do need a little bit of an investment. For me, it was $20 to get your portfolio started and really just start trading the NFTs. So with this, the types of names that they're partnered with really sells me on the longevity of this particular product. They're starting to talk about partnering with Ethereum, Ethereum child coins. I'll go into some other videos about what cryptocurrencies are and different types of things in some of my videos in my channel. So VeVe is an app that periodically will drop NFTs, which essentially just means they're releasing new NFTs into the market. And with their partnerships, they're able to pull in a certain number of those types of NFTs. These can be anything from collectibles. I've even seen movie tickets. Comic books are probably the most common one that I like to trade. And the drop notifications that you're going to get are going to come out over Twitter, Instagram, and email. And so signing up for all three of those really gave me an advantage to know when they're coming up. And they tend to hit all three, but in varying orders. And oftentimes they'll leak information to some and not others. So best to have the full picture by getting all three. From what I've seen, it typically drops every Wednesday at 8 a.m. Pacific time. Really, you could find it as many times as 2 or 3 times per day, and as many as every day per week is the most I've seen, but typically they're doing at least once per week. So the real trick to getting the asset is looking at the app and being on the page with the countdown, going down and hitting the buy button at the exact moment that it changes. Now, depending on if you're getting a graphic or collectible, there could be different strategies that you'd want to go for. So the graphic novels tend to change and they flip, whereas the collectibles could actually just stay at the same price or drop in price, which a lot of them have done. So I typically lean towards the comic books. The problem is that the drops have a certain number of assets, and there's a lot of people trying to go for these. So the drop rates are typically about 1 to 2 seconds long, where you have that moment to hit the buy button. So getting a rhythm of how that happens and how that is done really works to your advantage, and you really can get every single comic, but you don't always get every single collectible. A few hours after you have purchased your collectible, the market opens, and that's the market of people trading these NFTs back and forth. So it really is another strategy of not only holding it, but then deciding how much you want to sell it for. There's two different strategies that you can use here, either a long-term hold of hanging on to the collectibles hoping that it'll blow up in the future, or flipping them. Really, I've seen as the market goes open, that's when the price is highest. And when you flip them, you take your profits and you're on to the next drop. There's two types of assets that are available today, comics and collectibles. And they really vary in the way that you want to approach them and what you want to get. Two values as well that are tied to those two types of assets. The mint number, which represents what number of the serial that you got. So for example, if there's 10,000, it's more valuable to get the first than the 10,000, and then thereby increases the value having a lower mint number. The other thing that you can get is the rarity. The rarity can be anywhere from common, uncommon, rare, ultra rare, secret rare even, and again, those different types of rarities can increase the value of what you're getting. From what I've found, all comic books have been dropping for $6.99. That's really $6.99 gems, but it's one for one, $1 for one gem. And then they typically will double in value for at least the commons, but the higher rarities can get into the thousands of gems. So this is best to start with. I usually find that the comics also have about 30,000 in the drop, so you have a good second to hit that buy button, a wider opening than when you're trying to go for the collectibles, which sometimes could have as few as 1,000, or movie tickets I've seen, there were 7 that were released. So going for the comics, I find, are the best strategies that I found. You'll almost always get one. I've got pretty much every single comic. A friend of mine who I just got into this on the last drops has gotten them every single time in the last 2 drops. The other thing that I find is when you get them, you really want to watch the market for other individuals who have things at the same price. So where you're always going to increase in value with comics, the collectibles, you may find that they're dropping in price immediately, but could jump up later. Another strategy that I found that really has given me the most advantage is multiple phones and multiple accounts. I can create free Gmail accounts. I have 3 separate phones. My old phones that I've had just upgrading, I've got 2 cracked old phones, so I end up with 3. And 3 is pretty much the maximum that I can manipulate, because the buy button appears at different moments, and even those few milliseconds end up costing me an extra collectible. But where you can only buy 1 collectible at the drop, you can only secure 1. By the time you've secured that one, the rest are gone, so you can't get a second. Having 3 to do at the same time really does maximize the profit 3-fold. My personal strategy with that, using comic books, is to hang on to 1 common and sell anything else that I have. Usually this will be something that's an uncommon or a lower mint number, and I'm just holding on to what I think of as the least valuable, but sort of playing both sides of the field in that regard, where I have one that I'm hanging on to for the long term, and then I'm flipping and keeping money in my pocket in the form of gems to flip when they turn on the spigot to allow me to withdraw those. Some of the things that I find work good are finding a rhythm. So the buy now button, you're going to really notice that with the graphics are changing when you're looking at the comics, but not with a collectible. So when the countdown hits 0, there's about a brief second, and then the buy now button will actually change. That's when you want to smash it. The comic books are the ones that actually change the color of the image, whereas the collectibles, there's a bit of a color change of flash, but it doesn't really change as much as the comic. So don't be tricked by that. I've sat staring at the buy now button and watched things go by, and a few times comics change, collectibles do not. I don't know when they'll update that, hopefully soon. So they're consistent. I like the comic version better. It's easy to see when it's available. Another tool that I use is I never personally buy off the market. I only will get it off the drop. So thereby not trying to catch something that's falling in price, and typically the market is not moving too much, where you may capture something from a slower or a lower price. Somebody that posts something that's really below the market is going to get snatched up immediately, and you're probably not going to get that anyway. When you're going to sell on the market, another thing you want to look at is the edition number. So again, filtering when you're selling on the market to that mint number that you may have. If you got a lower number, maybe in the lower half, if it's 10,000, under 5,000 would be a good number to start to look at a higher value for. Make sure that when you're filtering on the market, you're taking that into account and not just rushing through and selling something that may be of high value. Finally, another tip that I have is a website called time.io. It's a website that gives exact time. It'll actually tell you how far off your device is. If you have another device that you're looking at with that countdown, you can usually time the drops correctly. I personally don't find that changing the date and time on my phone, taking it off of automatically adjusting and maybe moving it ahead a few minutes doesn't really give me too much of an advantage, or I haven't found it. But maybe using that in conjunction with the time.io, you can get a faster press of the button, because the app does definitely block you when your clock thinks that it's not quite the time of the drop yet. Things not to forget: it's important to always make sure you got your ducks in a row before the drop happens. Gems in your wallet, good internet connection. You're not sitting on the 4G where you should be on Wi-Fi. You can wait on the page before the buy now button. So there's actually a page that shows the different collectibles or the different comics, and then when you select it is when it actually shows the buy now button. Waiting on that page up until about 2 or 3 minutes before the drop is going to save you a lot of time, and it's actually going to give you a much more accurate drop countdown, where even a couple seconds really can make the big difference, as these drops go away in about 1 or 2 seconds. So you want that button there at the exact time that it's supposed to be there. So currently, I think that this is just for fun. I like to look at assets that I value and things that I recognize. I find that comic books are really of value because I can actually read them. You really would find, this app is going places by partnering with the right people. You're looking at these assets of things that you normally couldn't get control or have your hands on. Things like comic books of the first Marvel that ever released that would be a cool 1.2 million if you ever tried to buy it yourself. Now I can flip through it on my phone for just $6.99. I think it's much more obviously on the market, but I got my hands on something like that. It's cool. I will be happy with that, even if that's all I ever get, but hoping that this is really going to fruit into some big investment payoffs for me, being in NFTs early on. And looking at other apps and things that might be supporting NFTs as well. I'm hoping to find, this is just starting my portfolio and educating me on those other types of holdings. So if you liked what you saw here today, go ahead and smash that like button, subscribe, hit the bell for some more notifications when I release more videos. Hoping to do this at least once per week, but in a cadence, maybe getting it up even more than that. Hope you enjoyed. Thanks a lot.